Alien girl welcomed me into her hut to warm up. Her intentions were far from innocent HFY Sci-Fi. The blizzard on Arva 9 howled like a wounded beast, biting through my thermal suit with the ferocity of 1,000 daggers. I was stranded, a rookie mistake. My scout ship's engines were fried after an ill-advised maneuver through the planet's erratic magnetic storms. If I didn't find shelter, I'd become a frozen monument to human stubbornness. Stumbling through the whiteout, I spotted a faint orange glow, barely distinguishable from the swirling snow. A hut? Out here? My survival instincts overrode my suspicion. I trudged toward it, each step an act of defiance against the relentless wind. The hut was constructed from a mix of alien materials, smooth, iridescent panels melded seamlessly with organic, bone-like supports. As I approached, the door slid open with a soft hum, revealing a tall, slender figure silhouetted against the firelight. Her skin shimmered like opal, and her eyes, larger than any human's, glowed faintly violet. "You are not of this world," she said, her voice melodic yet tinged with an unsettling undertone. She gestured for me to enter. "Come. The cold does not forgive." I hesitated. Every survival manual screamed against trusting the unknown, but the warmth radiating from the hut was too tempting. I stepped inside, and the door closed behind me with a whisper. The interior was sparse yet oddly inviting. A fire crackled in a pit at the center, its flames a mesmerizing shade of blue. The alien, clearly the hut's owner, moved gracefully, her every motion exuding a predatory elegance. She offered me a seat on a woven mat and handed me a steaming cup filled with a fragrant liquid. "I am Laravel," she said, her gaze fixed on me. "You are fortunate to have found my home." "Thanks," I muttered, sipping the drink. It was sweet, with a metallic aftertaste, but it warmed me instantly. "I'm Alex. My ship went down in the storm." Her eyes narrowed, the faint glow intensifying. A human, curious creatures, so fragile yet so resilient. Something in her tone made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I set the cup down and tried to gauge her intentions. "I appreciate your hospitality. Once the storm clears, I'll be out of your hair." She tilted her head, a slow, deliberate motion. "Why rush? The storm is fierce. Stay, rest." Her words were inviting, but there was an edge to them, like a spider coaxing a fly into its web. I glanced around the hut, noting small details I'd missed before, strange tools and instruments lining the walls, some of them eerily familiar, others completely alien. A set of restraints, subtle but unmistakable, was partially hidden beneath a pile of furs. "What brings you out here, Laravel?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Her smile was sharp, almost predatory. "Research. I study life forms, their capabilities." I didn't like where this was going. The warmth of the hut suddenly felt oppressive, the fire too bright. I shifted uncomfortably. "Life forms, huh? Must be fascinating work." "Oh, it is," she replied, her voice almost a purr, "especially when the subjects come to me willingly." My pulse quickened. I rose slowly, keeping my movements non-threatening. "Well, I'd hate to interrupt your work. I should probably." Her hand shot out, faster than I thought possible, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. "You're not ready to leave. The storm is still dangerous." "I can manage," I said, my voice steady despite the growing panic. She leaned closer, her violet eyes piercing mine. "Humans are so intriguing. Your fear, your determination, it's intoxicating." I yanked my arm free and backed toward the door, my heart pounding. "Thanks for the drink, really, but I need to go." Her smile widened, revealing teeth sharper than I'd noticed before. "You won't get far, Alex. The storm will bring you back to me. They always come back." I didn't wait to find out if she was right. I slammed my palm against the door's control panel, and it slid open. The icy wind hit me like a wall, but it was a welcome contrast to the suffocating tension inside the hut. I ran, the snow blinding me, my lungs burning with every breath. Behind me, I thought I heard Laravel's voice, carried on the wind, a haunting melody that promised I hadn't seen the last of her. The storm might kill me, but staying in that hut felt like a worse fate. As I stumbled into the endless white, one thought burned in my mind: what exactly was Laravel planning, and why did she seem so confident I'd return? The cold lashed at my exposed face as I fled into the storm, each step sinking into the snow that clawed at my boots. Laravel's words echoed in my mind: asterisk, they always come back. Asterisk, it wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. The blizzard intensified, the wind carrying fragments of her eerie melody. The sound unnerved me, not loud, but persistent, weaving itself into the howl of the storm. My breath formed icy clouds in the air, and the warmth I'd stolen from her hut began to fade. I needed to find shelter, fast. I don't know how long I wandered before I spotted another structure, larger than Laravel's hut. with faint lights glowing beneath layers of frost and snow. It wasn't human-made, the design was too alien, all smooth curves and organic shapes, but I couldn't afford to be picky. The entrance was a wide, circular hatch, rimmed with faintly glowing symbols. I hesitated, unsure how to open it. My fingers, numbed by the cold, brushed against the surface. The door responded instantly, spiraling open with a soft hiss. Warm air poured out, carrying the faint scent of metal and ozone. Inside, the space was cavernous and dimly lit. The walls pulsed faintly, as if alive, and the floor was covered in a strange, spongy material that absorbed the sound of my boots. I wasn't alone. A group of beings clustered near the center of the room. They were of varying shapes and sizes, none quite like Laravel but unmistakably alien. They turned toward me as I entered, their eyes reflecting the light with an unsettling, animalistic gleam. "Human," one of them rasped, its voice clicking unnaturally, "you've strayed far from your kind." I raised my hands, palms out. "I mean no harm, just looking for shelter." The largest of the group, a towering creature with chitinous armor and glowing, segmented eyes, stepped forward. "Shelter? Or escape?" it growled, its mandibles clicking ominously. The word escape sent a chill through me colder than the storm outside. "You know Laravel?" The room fell silent. The aliens exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. "She has taken an interest in you," the large one said finally. "That is unfortunate." I swallowed hard. "Why, what does she want?" "She is a collector," another alien said, its voice softer but no less unnerving, "a seeker of anomalies. To her, you are a curiosity, one she will not release willingly." "Collector?" I echoed, my stomach sinking. "So I'm, what, a specimen?" The large alien nodded. "Precisely, and once she marks you, escape becomes unlikely." My hand instinctively went to my wrist, where she had grabbed me. The skin there tingled faintly, as if something invisible had taken root. "Marked?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "She has claimed you," the alien said gravely. "The storm is hers, a trap for the unwary. It will guide you back to her." I clenched my fists, panic rising. There has to be a way to stop her. The group exchanged glances again, and for the first time, I saw something resembling fear in their alien features. The largest one finally spoke. "There is one way, but it is dangerous. You must sever the bond before she can solidify it. To do that, you must confront her." "Confront her? Are you insane?" I snapped. "She's faster, stronger, and clearly smarter. I wouldn't stand a chance." "Then your fate is sealed," the alien said, its tone final. "She will take you, as she has taken many before." I stared at them, my mind racing. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to run, but I knew the truth. If I didn't face her, I'd either die in the storm or end up as another piece in her collection. "Fine," I said through gritted teeth. "I'll do it. How do I sever the bond?" The large alien stepped closer, its glowing eyes locking onto mine. "You must make her see you not as prey, but as predator. Only then will the bond break." The storm hadn't lessened when I left the shelter, but now I had a destination. I retraced my steps to Laravel's hut, every moment a battle against the icy winds and my own terror. Her melody grew louder as I approached, wrapping around me like a vice. The door slid open before I could touch it, and there she stood, her shimmering form framed by the firelight. "I told you," she said with a triumphant smile, "they always come back." This time, I didn't flinch. I stepped inside, meeting her gaze head-on. Maybe I wanted to. Her smile faltered for a split second, replaced by a flicker of curiosity, and something like amusement. "Bold, but boldness will not save you." I clenched my fists, steeling myself. "Maybe not, but it's a start." As the door closed behind me, I knew this confrontation would decide everything. If I failed, I'd become just another one of her trophies. But if I succeeded, I'd do more than survive. I'd prove that humans, for all their fragility, were far more than just prey. The fire crackled in the center of Laravel's hut, casting eerie shadows that danced across her iridescent skin. She moved with an unearthly grace, her glowing violet eyes locked onto mine. The predatory glint in her gaze was gone, replaced by something more complex, curiosity laced with a hint of irritation. "You intrigue me, human," she said, her voice melodic yet laced with menace. "Most would be too afraid to return. But not you." "Why?" I took a step forward, my boots scraping against the smooth, alien floor. "Because I'm not afraid of you, Laravel. And I'm not going to be your trophy." Her laugh was low and resonant, vibrating in my chest. "Not afraid? You should be. Humans are fragile things, so easy to break." "Maybe," I said, holding her gaze. "But we don't break as easily as you think." She tilted her head, studying me with those piercing eyes. Such defiance, she murmured. Is this the infamous human spirit I've heard of? Or simple desperation? I clenched my fists, feeling the tingle on my wrist where she had marked me. The bond, whatever it was, thrummed faintly beneath my skin, a reminder of the invisible tether she had placed on me. If I was going to sever it, I had to act now. I had to make her see me not as a curiosity, not as prey, but as an equal, or a threat. I know what you're doing, I said, stepping closer. You think I'm some kind of experiment. Something to study, to dissect. But you don't understand what humans are capable of. Her smile returned, sharp and dangerous. And what, exactly, are you capable of, Alex? Enlighten me. You think you're the predator here, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. But you don't know what happens when a cornered human decides to fight back. Her eyes narrowed, and the room seemed to grow colder. Bold words. But words are not enough. The bond on my wrist burned suddenly, a sharp, searing pain that made me wince. Laravel's smile widened, and I realized she was testing me, pushing me to see how far I would go. I gritted my teeth, refusing to back down. You think you've got me figured out? Fine. Let's find out who the real predator is. Without warning, I lunged at her. It wasn't a calculated move, more instinct than strategy, but it caught her off guard. My shoulder collided with hers, and we tumbled to the ground. She was stronger than I anticipated, her lithe frame packed with inhuman strength, but I didn't let up. I fought like my life depended on it, because it did. Laravel snarled, a sound that sent chills down my spine. Her hands found my shoulders, shoving me back with enough force to slam me into the wall. Pain radiated through my body, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of a scream. You're bold, she hissed, her face inches from mine. But boldness without strength is futile. I met her gaze, forcing a smirk despite the pain. Strength isn't everything. Before she could react, I reached for the glowing orb near the fire, a device that seemed central to her hut. I didn't know what it did, but the way her eyes widened told me it was important. I gripped it tightly, the heat of the object searing my palms. What are you doing? She demanded, her voice sharp. Leveling the playing field, I said, raising the orb over my head. For the first time, I saw fear flash across her face. No. You don't understand. I slammed the orb to the ground with all my strength. It shattered, releasing a wave of energy that sent both of us sprawling. The light in the room flickered, and the bond on my wrist seared one last time before fading completely. When I opened my eyes, Laravel was crouched on the floor, clutching her chest. She looked up at me, her eyes no longer glowing. For the first time, she seemed vulnerable. You, she whispered, her voice trembling. You broke the link. I pushed myself to my feet, every muscle in my body aching. I told you. Humans don't break easily. She stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she began to laugh, a quiet, bitter sound. Perhaps I underestimated you after all. The storm outside had died down, the howling wind replaced by an eerie silence. I turned to the door, knowing I needed to leave before she recovered. But as I stepped toward the exit, Laravel's voice stopped me. Wait. I paused, glancing back. She was still on the floor, her shimmering skin dulled, but her gaze held a strange mixture of respect and something else. You've proven your strength, Alex. Perhaps there's more to your kind than I realized. I didn't reply. There was nothing more to say. Without another word, I stepped into the frigid air, the remnants of the storm whipping around me. I didn't look back. As I trudged through the snow toward the faint signal of my downship, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Laravel wasn't the type to let a challenge go unanswered. But for now, I was free. And if she ever came for me again, she'd find that humans weren't just survivors, we were fighters. The trek back to my ship was long and brutal, the remnants of the storm clinging to the air like a reluctant ghost. My body ached from the fight with Laravel, and every step felt heavier than the last. But I was alive, and for now, that was enough. When I finally reached the wreckage of my ship, the sight was almost enough to make me collapse. The hull was scorched and battered, but the distress beacon was still functioning, blinking faintly through the frost. I activated the emergency communicator, sending a signal to the nearest human outpost. This is Alex Mason, pilot of the Odyssey Dawn. Ship down on Arva 9. Request immediate extraction. My voice was hoarse, but steady. A crackle of static answered, then a voice, acknowledged. Mason, rescue team en route. ETA 6 hours. Sit tight. 6 hours. It felt like an eternity. I ducked into what remained of the cockpit, grateful for the small reprieve from the cold. My mind replayed the encounter with Laravel, every word, every movement. Had I truly escaped her? Or was this just the beginning of something far more dangerous? The hours passed slowly, the storm had quieted, but an unnatural stillness hung over the frozen landscape. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every creak of the wind sounded like a footstep, every shadow a figure just out of sight. Then, just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, I saw it, a silhouette in the distance, moving with purpose through the snow. My heart pounded as I reached for the emergency flare gun strapped to my belt. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. As the figure approached, I recognized her, Laravel. She stopped a few meters away, her opalescent skin catching the fading light. Her movements were slower now, less predatory. She wasn't here to fight, that much was clear, but her presence still set me on edge. "You didn't think it would end so easily, did you?" she said, her voice soft but carrying effortlessly through the cold air. I tightened my grip on the flare gun. "What do you want, Laravel? Didn't I prove my point?" She tilted her head, a small, enigmatic smile playing on her lips. "You proved something, but our game isn't over, not yet." I raised the flare gun, aiming it squarely at her chest. "Stay back, I'm done playing games." She didn't flinch, her gaze steady. "You've broken the bond, Alex. I can no longer claim you, but you've done something far more interesting. You've earned my respect." I scoffed, though my hands trembled slightly. "Respect? Is that what you call hunting someone down in the middle of a frozen wasteland?" Her smile widened. "You misunderstand me. I don't hunt out of malice. I hunt to understand, to learn, and you, Alex Mason, are a lesson I won't forget." I didn't lower the flare gun. "So what now? You walk away, and I never see you again?" She stepped closer, her movements slow and deliberate, as if testing my resolve. "Perhaps, or perhaps we meet again, under different circumstances." "Why would I want that?" I asked, my voice edged with frustration. Her expression softened, just a fraction. "Because the universe is vast, and you are far more intriguing than I anticipated. Who knows, you might surprise me again." I kept the gun trained on her, unsure if she was serious or playing another one of her games, but as she turned and began walking away, I didn't stop her. I watched her figure fade into the snowy expanse, her shimmering form swallowed by the horizon. By the time the rescue team arrived, I felt more like a ghost than a man. They bundled me into the warmth of their ship, asking questions I could barely answer. I didn't tell them about Laravel, at least, not everything. They wouldn't have believed me anyway. As the rescue ship lifted off, I stared out the viewport at the frozen world below. Somewhere out there, Laravel was watching, waiting, perhaps already planning her next move. The thought should have terrified me, but instead, it filled me with a strange sense of anticipation. For better or worse, our paths had crossed, and in the endless expanse of the universe, I had a feeling they would cross again. When they did, I'd be ready. The rescue ship was a standard H-series transport, a sturdy vessel with just enough comforts to keep a survivor like me from cracking during the long trip back to the outpost. The crew, a mix of grizzled veterans and green rookies, didn't press too hard about what had happened on Arva 9. They knew better than to question the kind of silence I carried. Still, I caught snippets of their hushed conversations when they thought I wasn't listening. "Storms on that planet aren't natural," one muttered. "Whole sector's bad news," said another. "People go missing out there." I kept my eyes on the viewport, watching the icy planet shrink into the void. "Missing people, asterisk specimens, asterisk Laravel's hut," and her eerie words came rushing back. The outpost was a cold, industrial behemoth orbiting a dying star. After the chaos of Arva 9, its artificial gravity and recycled air felt strangely reassuring. I was debriefed in a sterile room by an officer with a clipboard and a face that looked carved from stone. "You're lucky to be alive," he said, not looking up from his notes. "We've lost more than a few scouts to those storms." "Yeah," I replied, non-committal. "And you didn't encounter any hostiles?" He asked the question casually, but his tone betrayed his curiosity. "Hostiles?" I repeated, feigning confusion. "No, just the storm." He studied me for a moment, his cold, analytical gaze trying to crack me open, but I'd made up my mind. Laravel and what happened on that frozen world would remain my secret, for now. I tried to settle back into routine, taking on low-risk assignments and spending my downtime in the outpost's dimly lit rec rooms, but Arva 9 clung to me like frostbite, the memory of Laravel's eyes a persistent phantom. And then, a month later, the message came. I was in my quarters, half asleep, when my datapad chimed. I frowned, picking it up. The screen displayed an unfamiliar frequency, encrypted, off the grid. My pulse quickened as I accepted the transmission. Her voice was unmistakable. "Hello, Alex." I sat up, the datapad trembling slightly in my hands. "Laravel," I said, my voice a mix of shock and anger. "How did you?" Your technology is quaint but predictable, she interrupted, her tone almost teasing. I thought I'd check in. Have you been, well? What do you want? I snapped, my heart pounding. Haven't you done enough? She chuckled softly, the sound as unsettling as it was familiar. You misunderstand. I'm not here to threaten you, Alex. Quite the opposite. I have a proposition. I narrowed my eyes. Proposition? You're kidding, right? Not at all, she replied, her tone turning serious. You've shown me something I didn't expect, something rare. Humanity's resilience fascinates me, and I believe we could learn from one another. I laughed bitterly. You want me to trust you after what you did? I didn't kill you, did I? She said smoothly. If I wanted to, I could have, easily, but I didn't. That must count for something. I couldn't argue with that, but it didn't mean I trusted her. What kind of proposition? A partnership, she said, her voice taking on a curious edge. The universe is vast, Alex, and full of dangers far greater than me. Together, we could explore, discover, survive. I stared at the screen, her words hanging in the air like a challenge. Every instinct screamed to end the transmission, to put as much distance between us as possible. But deep down, I knew something had changed on Arva 9. She wasn't just an enemy, or even an alien predator. She was an enigma, one I couldn't ignore. Why me? I asked finally. Because you're different, she said simply, and because you survived. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the disconnect button, but instead of pressing it, I found myself leaning forward, my curiosity outweighing my fear. Fine, I said, I'll listen, but if you try anything. Her laugh was soft, almost pleased. I wouldn't dream of it. As the transmission ended, I stared at the blank screen, my thoughts racing. Whatever I'd just agreed to, it felt like the start of something bigger than either of us, something dangerous. And maybe, just maybe, something worth the risk. The days that followed were a blur of cautious planning and sleepless nights. Laravel's proposal haunted me like a specter. Every logical part of my brain screamed at me to report the incident, to hand over her encrypted frequency to the outpost security team, and wash my hands of the whole ordeal. But I didn't. Instead, I found myself waiting, half expecting another message from her, half hoping it wouldn't come. When it finally did, it was as unassuming as the first, a quiet chime in the middle of a long, uneventful shift. This time, she appeared on the screen. The shimmering, otherworldly glow of her skin was muted in the low light, but her violet eyes burned with a familiar intensity. You came back, I said flatly, trying to keep the unease from my voice. I never left, she replied, leaning forward slightly. I told you, Alex, I don't abandon my interests. Her words sent a shiver down my spine. Let's cut to the chase. What do you want? To see if you're serious, she said, tilting her head. You've agreed to listen, but I need to know if you're capable of more than that. And how exactly do I prove that? I asked warily. Her smile was faint, but it carried a weight I couldn't ignore. There's a derelict vessel orbiting a rogue planet near your sector. It's been adrift for centuries, maybe longer. Your people have likely marked it as a hazard and ignored it, but it's far more than that. Let me guess, I said dryly. You want me to go there? Together, she corrected. I'll meet you there. If you survive, we'll talk about what comes next. I stared at her, weighing my options. This could easily be a trap, a way for her to finish what she started on Arva 9, but something in her tone, an almost grudging respect, made me hesitate. Why the ship? I asked. There's something aboard it that doesn't belong to either of our worlds, she said, her voice growing serious. Something dangerous. If we don't retrieve it, someone else will, and I'd rather that someone be us. Us, I echoed, the word tasting foreign in my mouth. You realize how insane this sounds, right? Most worthwhile things do, she said with a faint smirk. The coordinates are already in your ship's database. I'll be waiting. The screen went dark before I could respond, leaving me alone with the weight of her words. It didn't take long to make my decision. Something about Laravel's challenge stirred a restless energy in me, a need to prove, to myself, if no one else, that I was capable of more than mere survival. The outpost's bureaucracy made it easy to requisition a small scout ship for routine exploration. No one asked too many questions, and I didn't offer any answers. The rogue planet was exactly where she'd said it would be, a lonely sphere of rock and ice tumbling through the void, its orbit tethered to no star. The derelict vessel hung in its shadow, a jagged silhouette against the cold black. As I approached, my comms crackled to life. You made it, Laravel's voice said, smooth and unbothered. I wasn't sure you would. Her ship, a sleek, organic craft that seemed to pulse faintly with its own light, emerged from the darkness, sliding effortlessly alongside mine. Wasn't sure I'd make it either, I admitted, my hands gripping the controls. So, what now? Now, she said, her tone almost playful. We see if your courage matches your curiosity. The airlock cycled, and for a moment, I considered staying in my ship, refusing to step into the unknown with her again. But then I remembered the storm on Arva 9, the way I'd stared death in the face and refused to flinch. With a deep breath, I opened the hatch and stepped into the void. The derelict ship was ancient, its corridors filled with shadows and an eerie stillness that set my teeth on edge. Laravel moved ahead of me, her lithe form almost blending with the darkness. She didn't carry a weapon, not one I could see, at least, but her confidence was unsettling. What exactly are we looking for? I asked, my voice low. You'll know when you see it, she said cryptically. We passed through what must have been a cargo bay, its walls lined with strange, alien markings. As we entered the next chamber, a faint hum filled the air, growing louder with each step. And then I saw it. In the center of the room was a device, a sphere of shifting light and energy, its surface rippling like water. It seemed impossibly alive, pulsating with an unnatural rhythm that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. What is it? I asked, unable to tear my eyes away. Laravel's expression was uncharacteristically somber. A weapon, she said quietly, one that should never have existed. Before I could respond, the sphere pulsed violently, sending a shockwave through the room. Alarms blared, and the ship groaned as if awakening from a long slumber. Time to move, Laravel shouted, grabbing my arm. As we ran, I couldn't help but feel that I'd just stepped into something far bigger, and far deadlier, than I could have ever imagined.